It's an unfortunate truth in the movie industry, but there will always be projects that go through a certain amount of development only to be cancelled before ever being released to the world. Nobody likes to see it, but there are multiple reasons as to why this could happen. Instead of the typical excuses, how about the fact that an author didn't like the Beatles, or there was not enough Australians in the cast to get the green light? These and more are genuine reasons why movies, some of which were incredibly deep into development and even almost finished, were canned. Today's video is sponsored by Fanholm. Check the link on screen and in the description below, but more on that later. Now let's dive into our list. I'm Adam, this is What Culture, and here are 10 dumbest reasons why movies got cancelled. Number 10. The producers sued the star, 10 things I hate about life. There are countless examples of famous arguments or spats between actors on movie sets. For whatever reason, sometimes the stars of the show don't get along. See the likes of The Rock and Vin Diesel, Shia LaBeouf and Tom Hardy, and even Christopher Reeve and Marlon Brando. Less common, however, is there being such issues between one star and the producers to the extent of the courts getting involved. This is exactly what happened with the would-be 10 Things I Hate About You sequel, 10 Things I Hate About Life. As with all arguments, there are two different sides to the story. According to 10 Things LLC, after filming was halted for 4 weeks, star Evan Rachel Wood did not plan to return, thus breaching her contract. They sued for $30 million. However, the actor hit back and claimed that it was producers that breached their contract when they ran out of money and failed to pay the money that was owed to her. As of 2011, there had been no resolution to the conflict, with the movie being dead in the water because of it. Number 9. Andrew Garfield's no-show, The Amazing Spider-Man 3. Andrew Garfield's version of the character may have reached new heights of popularity since his appearance in No Way Home, but the reception to his own 2 movies was lukewarm at best. Neither Amazing Spider-Man movie set the world on fire critically, though they certainly didn't disgrace themselves at the box office. This led to the planned release of The Amazing Spider-Man 3 in 2016, before the movie was ultimately cancelled and Garfield was replaced with Tom Holland. Reportedly, the famous Sony leak of 2014 included an email that went into detail about why exactly the movie was canned, with then CEO Kaz Hirai set to announce the threequel with Garfield at the big Sony event in Brazil. The actor reportedly pulled out at the last minute due to illness. According to the same reports, the studio was unhappy with Garfield and the movie was shortly shut down, leading to negotiations with Marvel Studios over Spidey joining the MCU. So, if Garfield had been feeling better on that day and had attended the event as planned, it's possible that the timeline and future of both Peter Parker and the Marvel Cinematic Universe would have been drastically different. Number 8. The director's tantrum, Crusade. Passion is an unquestioned necessity when it comes to making a movie, or creating anything at all. If there isn't a drive to give everything and to do whatever possible to make it the absolute best that it can be, then is there even a point in doing it at all? Director Paul Verhoeven could never be accused of lacking such passion, though this reportedly did get the better of him on one occasion that ultimately led to the cancellation of Crusade, a project that would have seen him once again collaborate with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The movie itself would have been an adaptation of the 1935 medieval epic The Crusades. Everything was written and ready to go, until Verhoeven ultimately flew off the handle. According to Arnie, Verhoeven's passion got the better of him in a meeting with the studio, when asked what assurances he could offer that the budget wouldn't spiral out of control, apparently screaming that guarantees are lies about acts of God and getting hit by a truck, and outright refusing to quell any worries about bloated budget doesn't sit well with the people writing the checks. Who knew? Number 7. Warner Brothers tax break, Batgirl. It has been a time of upheaval and change within the realms of DC movies in the recent years, and not just thanks to James Gunn and Peter Safran taking charge of things. The appointment of David Zaslav as CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery saw the cancellation of Batgirl, in spite of the movie being almost completed. Set to premiere on HBO Max rather than in cinemas, and according to Peter Safran being unreleasable, Batgirl was cancelled as something of a cost-cutting measure. This seems on the face of it a strange decision considering a reported $90 million budget had already been sunk into production. The powers that be ultimately made the incredibly unpopular decision to shelve the movie as they believed releasing it would actually result in a loss for the company. Instead, Batgirl was used as a huge tax write-off. According to a report from Newsweek, cancelling Batgirl meant that Warner Bros. Could offset the $90 million loss against its income from other releases, subsequently reducing taxable income. It's a sad day when a movie studio decides to release a movie that has been 90% completed in favour of a cost-saving loophole. All that time and effort wasted. Number 6. The refusal of an R rating at the Mountains of Madness. Guillermo del Toro is a legendary director, but also has an extensive list of movies to his name that ultimately weren't made. From the elusive third movie in the Hellboy series to dropping out of The Hobbit and having his name attached to numerous projects that never came to fruition, there are some impressive projects that were once on the cards. One such abandoned idea was Del Toro's adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. The director is no stranger to Lovecraft's work, having adapted both Pickman's Model and the dreams in the witch house in the Cabinet of Curiosities, but he once came agonizingly close to filming what was considered to be impossible to film. Ultimately, the reason why the movie was put on ice by Universal was Del Toro's insistence on the movie being R-rated. This could have now been up there with some of the biggest R-rated movies of all time, the likes of Joker and Deadpool, but the label seemingly scared the studio. Yet, such a rating limits a movie's potential audience, but it would allow for the best possible version of itself. This is a crying shame, as Del Toro, H.P. Lovecraft, and the home of cinema monsters would have been a match made in heaven, but instead Universal rejected the darker tone outright. Number 5. Not enough Australians in the cast, Justice League Mortal. Long before Justice dawned in the DCEU, and before even Tony Stark established the MCU while announcing that he is Iron Man, there were plans to bring the Justice League to the big screen. Among the climate of Batman Begins and Superman Returns, this would have come with George Miller at the helm. The movie that would have seen Armie Hammer as Batman and DJ Catrona as Superman faced multiple issues during its ultimately fruitless production, one of the biggest being the writer's strike of 2007. This posed the same problem many productions have been facing in 2023, but there was something else. The plan, with Miller himself hailing from Australia, was to shoot the movie in Sydney. However, citing reasons such as how many Australians were in the cast and the refusal of a production rebate, the Australian Film Commission refused the director, leaving the movie with nowhere to shoot. Other issues such as the success of Batman's standalone Dark Knight series were factors, but Miller himself confirmed alongside the WGA strike, the main reason for the film being cancelled was the inability to take production to his home country. Hold up! Before we continue with the list, today's sponsor is brought to you by our friends at Fanholm. Now then, do you love collecting merchandise from your favorite franchises? I'm talking about the big ones. Star Wars, the MCU, Ghostbusters, Transformers, Back to the Future, as well as video game franchises. Fanholm offers exclusive collections and high-quality build-up models with original in-house designs you won't find anywhere else. The subscription model works like this. Choose your collection or build-up model and subscribe, and then every month you receive exclusive products and magazines with inspiring content. Speaking of which, I'm working on my Fanholm package right here. Autobots, transform and roll out because we're building Optimus Prime. As well as building instructions, he also comes with a full-color magazine detailing his origins from his homeworld Cybertron and the ongoing battles between the Autobots and the Decepticons. Fanholm's Optimus Prime stands at 60 centimeters in height with LED light-up eyes and weapons included, and has a high-quality detailed finish accurate to the original. Are you like me and want to keep adding to your collections? Then be sure to check out the link in the description down below. But hold up! There's more. During your subscription, you will also receive these amazing gifts. These gifts include a Transformers backpack, an Optimus Prime t-shirt, Transformers keyring, mug, and posters. Alright, and now back to the list. Number 4. Not casting John Cleese, Sergeant Rock. Over the years, movies have brought together some iconic duos, some that you would expect to gel, while others that may come across as more of a surprise. Had John McTiernan's Sergeant Rock movie seen the light of day in the 1980s, the pairing of Arnold Schwarzenegger and John Cleese surely would have fallen into the category of the latter. Arnie was set to play the titular DC Comics character for the Die Hard director, while Cleese was envisioned as an English cook during World War II who would have made fun of Rock and vice versa. This relationship was supposed to be the backbone of the entire movie, but Cleese rejected the opportunity. According to McTernan, the English actor judged both he and Arnie on their reputations and thought of them as a couple of thug American action movie makers. Everything went downhill from there. The idea of Cleese taking the role was so integral to the movie that when he said no, the production essentially fell apart. Apparently, no one thought to try picking up the phone to ring Rowan Atkinson or any other British comedian instead. After such a setback, Schwarzenegger dropped out to make Total Recall, and the movie was never picked up again. Who knew that Basil Fawlty could have such an impact on the comic book movie world? Number 3. Waterloos Failure, Napoleon. Movie creators always need to be aware of the atmosphere and feeling around them. In short, the bottom line is that the movie needs to make money, and for that there needs to be a market. Studios won't release something if they don't think anyone will see it. However, there has to be caution as to not overreact. When Waterloo flopped at the box office in the 1970s, it reportedly led to the cancellation of Stanley Kubrick's planned Napoleon biopic, which feels like something of a knee-jerk reaction. Kubrick is widely regarded as one of the finest directors of his generation, and following on from the success of 2001: A Space Odyssey, he reportedly threw everything into this project. With a mind as meticulous and driven as Kubrick's behind the idea, it seems like this would have been a home run and is widely regarded as one of the greatest movies never made. Surely, Stanley Kubrick had earned some level of faith and trust at this point in his career, but instead, studios were put off by another film's disappointment. Perhaps instead, this could have driven everyone involved to make sure this movie wasn't received in the same way. Number 2. J.R.R. Tolkien didn't like pop music, The Lord of the Rings. Stanley Kubrick believed that Lord of the Rings was simply unfilmable, but now it's difficult to imagine the story without the likes of Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, Viggo Mortensen, and of course with Peter Jackson at the helm. Things could have been very different, however. Forget Wood, Aston, Andy Serkis and Sir Ian McKellen, and instead picture Frodo, Sam, Gollum and Gandalf being portrayed by Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, John Lennon and George Harrison respectively. Yes, back in 1968 the Beatles set their eyes on adapting J.R.R. Tolkien's epic just 3 decades before Jackson. Ultimately, the Fab Four's imagining of the Middle-earth saga was killed when they couldn't secure the rights from Tolkien himself. According to Peter Jackson, who had conversations with Paul McCartney about it when working on Get Back, the author didn't like the idea of this story being told by a pop group. The only thing you can say for certain is that this would have been a drastically different version from what Peter Jackson ultimately produced. And though there may always be a certain curiosity about how this would have been approached or the soundtrack that would have accompanied it, it's hard to imagine anything other than Jackson's adaptation. Number 1. It was never meant to be released in the first place, Fantastic Four. In spite of the rough patch the MCU has been going through, there is still a lot of pressure and expectation for the franchise to do right by the Fantastic Four. Marvel's first family have had rotten luck on the big screen in the past, stretching as far back as 1994, long before Tim Story brought the team alive. Way back when, the film rights to the Fantastic Four belonged to Constantine Film, a production company owned by German producer Bernd Eichinger. With no movie produced, however, and the rights set to lapse if that remained the case, something was put into production just for the sake of ticking a box. Eichinger would have lost the rights had nothing happened at all, as detailed in a report from Slash Film. Ultimately, this version of the Fantastic Four that preceded Tom Story's by a full decade was never meant to release. This was merely a ploy by the company to hold on to the rights without ever having to put anything out. And there we have it, folks, our list of dumb reasons movies got cancelled. But please do let us know down in the comments of any more that you might know about. And while you're there, make sure you give us a like and a cheeky subscribe. If you want to follow me on socials, I am Strawn87 across everything. Come and say hello to me on there. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, the rest of your month. Until next time, take care.